We're all the way here. Yeah. As you're placing your intentions, we want you to remember that within all things. You can get caught up in all sorts of information, ideas, conversations, different approaches. And they'll all be valid and they'll all have their own meaning. And you can try to figure out what's going to work. You can try to figure out what's going to be appropriate. You can try to plot it all out and it'll last you maybe a day until things start to come in that you hadn't foreseen, before there's more information that you couldn't have consciously thought out. So we want you to focus consistently on the intention. Let that sort everything out. So what's the intention? We're always going to call you back to letting your inner energy flow, to connecting with that eternal self that you are, to connecting to God, to source with that energy, letting that be the foundation. And when you trust that all knowing, when you trust that eternal part of yourself, life becomes so much nicer. You get the best of everything. You get to select from this conversation that which is going to uplift you. You get to select from this situation that which is going to add to that development of that inner energy. You get to bring to you the best of all of it in a way that is so far beyond your ability to consciously figure it out that you can put that so-called ego into the back seat. It can relax. It can take a nap. It can look around. It can enjoy the scenery, because this inner energy is going to draw to you from all things, from all situations, from all experiences, that which is going to further your process. And when we say that, we don't mean further your process in the sense that there is a standard necessarily that you must live up to, and inner source, that eternal part of you, is going to make sure you check off all the boxes and do it right. But instead, it is a creative process. Instead, there is development, there are new ideas. All of this is coming to you, not looking to one experience, to one person, to one conversation, ever to be the end all or the solution or the final answer, because that constricts you away from being able to continue to be informed by this consciousness that is so much bigger than you can wrap your mind around, that is so much more powerful than you even have words for. And when you relax and allow that to come forward, all the loose ends are tied up for you every single time. And you're not only given the inspiration and the new ideas, but you're also given the means to achieve it. Let that be your life and enjoy that. We are ready for you here.
I have a question. So, in that spirit of opening up and relaxing and being in the energy and really breathing that in and just like being that energy, stuff comes up. So, or I become more keenly aware when stuff comes up.
Yes.
So, so the stuff that has been coming up is around guilt, and I'd like to relinquish that. I notice that I feel a sense of guilt for almost enjoying my life or enjoying myself or feeling good or letting go of like survival even. It's um like if I don't sometimes I feel like, well, if I don't take responsibility and you know make things happen, then I'm letting other people down. And I've been really trying to get at the core of that. Like, you know, I know that's not true. I know that's not real. I know that's something that I've acquired. but I want to relinquish it.
So that's the statement. That's the feeling. And then the intention is to relinquish it, to let it go. And that's where the fun begins. That's where you get to enjoy yourself. And we're not being facetious when we say that. We really mean this is where you get to enjoy yourself.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely what I want. And I have that in many, 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 many moments. And I go there, into the sense of freedom, into the sense of, like really communicating with the energy and the angels and the flow. And it's wonderful and joyful and happy. And I had such a good time last night with some friends. We went out for a drink. It was really fun. Like but then there, I know that sometimes this sort of you know, um, like, how can I go and do that when, my husband can't? Or, when I leave him and, he can't come, or like ridiculous guilt. And I'm projecting it, totally projecting it, but um, it's just like almost a complex, like a Mother Teresa complex or something.
A complex, very good terminology here, but not in the pathological sense. A complex in the sense of belief. So you have many beliefs that are clustered about that feeling of guilt. So first step to letting some of that shift and change, because again, it is not about, as you said, getting to the core of it, but it's allowing that belief structure to shift and change. So you've identified some of the ideas here, some of the beliefs. Continue to speak from that and recognize what comes up, because often just that recognition of the thought or the recognition of the belief will be all that it takes when you have this understanding of the process to just allow it to loosen up a little bit. In fact, none of this is very stable. None of this is very permanent. It's all very shifting and changing. So just speak the recognition as the thoughts come up.
um I want to enjoy myself, and I really like enjoying putting myself, like doing things for myself and feeling that connection to myself, and that love for myself and nurturing myself, and whether it's going for a walk or going out with friends or taking a bath, or it, and that is really like fun, and also connecting with the universe in a way that I feel so much love. And I really, like, that carries me, that moves me, that fills me. And when I want to do something, there's this little voice kind of in the back of my head, but what about David? What about David? Like, I have to make sure, you know, is he going to be happy? Is he going to, like, he can't do things. So what about David? And then I start to think, well, you know, I'll make sure he's got food. I'll make sure, all of that. But it feels like I'm abandoning him in a way. And it doesn't feel good. And so then I work through that and I realize, okay, you know what? He's good. He's got a soul. He's on his journey. It's all good. He's content. I know he's got this beautiful sparkle in his eyes, and I love it. And I tell him that. And, we enjoy ourselves when we do stuff together. And and I'm good. And then I'm off, and I'll be back. I'll see you later, you know. But and then it's good. But why does it keep coming back to the sense of guilt then? Why does that keep coming up? So yeah, I'm vacillating.
And that's the full recognition, or is there more?
Um, it's almost like when you're a mother and your kids are dependent on you, and you can't really, you can't just leave them. Like, they're too little for to take care of themselves, so you've got to be there for them. And it's almost like that feeling. And sometimes you would like to just, run off and, have fun, play in the woods kind of thing. But you can't, because they would die.
So that's the bulk of it. Yes. Anything else there?
I'd like to add something if you don't mind, Marilyn. I'm sorry. I have a similar situation. I was in a car accident. I got a lawsuit, so I got money for the lawsuit. That's how I'm surviving and living. And since my injury, I'm around a lot of people with spinal cord injury in the community, and some of them don't have lawsuits, so they're struggling. And I feel guilty for where I live, the car I drive, and some of them take the bus, or some of them are poor, like living with their mom and only getting like a couple $100 from Social Security, where I'm getting lots of money, and I live in a high rise in Midtown Manhattan. I mean, sorry, Midtown
Miami.
Miami. So I have this constant guilt that's in my head that I'm kind of embarrassed to even mention where I live, because I don't want to come across like I'm boasting or something like that. And when they make comments, "Oh, Anson, you drive a Sprinter. I drive a Mercedes Sprinter truck. Those big, look like van, and it's all equipped and everything like that as well. And it's expensive, so they look at me in a certain way, and I feel guilty. So I do have that same situation. So, and I know, of course, I know I'm creating it. I know it's just what I'm putting there. And of course, in this world, some people it's for you, and some people it's against you. So I do know that, but I'm also creating that. So I just want to add that into there too. So I do have that kind of a similar situation happening to me.
Thank you.
When you have that full recognition of that, in other words, you felt it, you're not trying to push it away, you're letting yourself recognize the belief, the idea, the way that it feels. Now, having what's been called vulnerability with the self, we call it just that awareness, having that awareness within the self. Now things can shift and change. And so that's where we'll go with this conversation. Because if we're trying to tell you that you're worthy and all of this stuff, but you're still holding on to that belief, then there's a tug of war. And you may say, Joseph, that sounds great, but not fully accept it energetically. So you've stated that fully, you felt it, you recognize that you felt it in the past, and we want you to have that full recognition of that emotion now, because that full recognition now is again going to allow the bridge to occur. And this is true anytime something is setting you off or activating you emotionally, to feel it fully, to have that recognition. Now the next steps come. Here, the next steps will come in the form of this conversation, but they're always available to you, no matter where you are. The new ideas are right there. This is just a sort of verbalized, makes it a little bit easier, just a little bit easier. So, of course, you're creating your experience, and we want you to have that be your primary point of focus within this awareness. Of course, that means that they are creating their experience as well. But more importantly than that recognition is that you are creating this situation. You're creating these conversations. You're creating these relationships. So what do? In the same way we said have the full recognition of the belief, we want you to have the full recognition of those relationships. So it's not to push them away. In other words, you'll never understand where I'm coming from, or this makes me uncomfortable, therefore I will no longer interact with you. Because you know that that doesn't feel quite right. Running away from it doesn't feel quite right. So what do? What can you do? Because this is all about wanting to be of benefit to them. That's really what you're saying beneath that statement, is that you see those who are perhaps not as seemingly advantaged as yourself in this moment, and you want them to be. You want them to enjoy themselves. So that's what this conversation is really all about. How can you, if you can, and you can, influence them to that state? And we'll let you know when you feel the guilt, you're not helping them at all.
I know. Yeah.
I know I'm creating it. I know it's not helping, but it's still there. Like I try to tell myself, Anson. I mean, I know better. I really does, but it's like, why do I feel this way?
Hmm.
So you know why you feel that way. But do you know how to share the benefit? Is it to give all of your money away?
I
Is it
don't.
to say you can have the car? Or is it for you to stay home and to not enjoy yourself? Of course, that is not the solution that will win for everyone. So, if there were one single answer, we'd give it. If there was one thing that you could always do to be of benefit, we would tell you what that was. But there's not. So, how do you know what to do? How do you know how to be of benefit? How do you know what is acting out of seeming what you could call pity or acting out of an empowerment? How do you know? Is it, do you bring the list? Do you read the books? Do you consult the stars? The answer is not there. The answer is with this inner energy. So, as we began this conversation, you can't come at this with the thought that there is some sort of discrete answer, that there is one thing that we can give to you that's going to solve the problem for you and for them. Because even if we did give you the right answer for this moment, there will be another moment, and there will be another conversation, and there will be another and another and another. So, what does that feeling tell you? It's telling you that you're just approaching it in a way that isn't letting you offer the solution, the assistance that you desire to offer. Can you accept that?
Yeah, that makes sense because I've blocked that out. I mean, yeah, that totally makes sense. With the guilt, I know that I'm more focused on that energy than on the, on the moment. You know what I mean? I'm letting the beliefs kind of cloud the energetic response in the moment.
So, to a degree, you almost want us to talk both of, and this is to both of you, out of the guilt. But when you see it truly as not only being not helpful, but as being counterproductive, then you'll recognize earlier in that conversation you're having within your own mind,
Mhm.
that you're moving down that path. Once you're well down that path of guilt, it's quite difficult for us to talk you all the way back. The same is true with any emotion that is causing that static within yourself.
Mhm. So, are you saying that in the moment? So, as an example, if I plan to go out and be with my friends to do something, and I am letting David know, for instance, that I'm going to be gone and go and hang out with Berta and Sarah, and his food is on the stove, or Chloe will be here to give him his dinner or whatever, and the guilt arises, that twinge by just maybe letting it be, like not engaging in the guilt, just letting the situation be, and walking out the door.
Yes, because you don't know left from right. Neither of you do know left from right in those moments. If you're feeling the guilt come up and you're walking out the door and feeling the guilt getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, stop walking out the door and pause and let that energy move through you. And the energy may guide you to stay. It may guide you to go. It may guide you to have a conversation in that moment. It may guide you into a moment of silence and appreciation. It's going to be different every time. And so we can't give you an answer, always stay or always go when you have the feeling. But know that as that feeling grows and you're continuing to do it, and the same with you here, Anson, if you're having the conversation with another and you feel that feeling of guilt growing and growing and growing, see if you can walk it back. See if you can walk it back just a little bit until you find your balance. And that's when the inspiration is going to flow right in and you'll know what to say. Have you ever been in a conversation where something comes out of your mouth and you know that it was inappropriate for that situation, either because of the reaction of others or your own feeling, which comes after the fact?
Yes.
That's sort of what we're talking about here, but you don't keep it going. You don't keep it going if you're feeling that feedback. Now, we're not saying that the matter of conversation is inappropriate, and we're not saying that going out in that enjoyable way is inappropriate. But what we are saying is that there's something that your inner energy is offering, that your eternal self and your guidance is offering, that's going to be a win-win for everyone, that's going to uplift yourself and everyone around you. But because you have this, and ultimately not to make it too intellectual, but it is because of a belief that is going on there. But it's not up to you to discover and to, as you say, get to the core or dismantle or change the belief, but just recognize the feeling that's pulsing and step back a little bit and notice, if I say this, does the feeling get better or worse? If I take a step further out the door, does it get better or worse? If I start having this conversation with my husband for you and you say, I just want you to know that I'm going to take a little bit of time this evening, but you're always with me. I just want you to know that you're here with me. And, as I'm enjoying myself, I'm thinking of you, and I can't wait to tell you all about all the wonderful things that happen. And you feel, that's nice. And then you start to walk out the door and there's a feeling of lightness. There's a feeling of enjoyment. And we say, now you're on the path. Now you're offering the benefit to yourself and you're offering the benefit to others. But we're not going to give you a script. We're not going to give you something that you have to say every time, because it's going to be an in the moment inspiration that you'll be receiving. And for you, Anson, when you're having those conversations and you feel maybe a little bit of guilt, you can just walk it back a little bit and say things like, I know that there's something out there for all of us. I've let some good stuff happen to me, and I think there's some good stuff here for you. Do you want to hear about what I do? Do you want to hear about what works for me? And the only way that you'll know that this is benefiting yourself and them is because of the feeling. So you figure out your own way as you're going through this, and it'll change. It'll change day to day. It'll change moment to moment. It'll change conversation to conversation. But just notice it earlier and make those gentle tweaks. It's a way of speaking to yourself. It's a way of speaking to others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Very much.
Mm-hmm.
You're both resonating
Mm-hmm.
here.
Mm-hmm. I think that part of what I do is I project onto other people like what I think they're feeling, or I take on their feelings. I don't know, one or the other. Probably that I project what I believe
Hmm.
they're feeling onto them. And that I don't give them a chance to
Hmm.
respond to the energy, to the higher energy. Instead I yeah.
And as you have that perception, that is the influence that you're offering to another. You've had the experience of going into a conversation and assuming that the other person is upset or defensive. And of course, when they pick that up from you, that's exactly how they start to behave.
Mhm.
And that's the influence that you're offering. That's why it's so important for you to have that emotional, energetic recognition and making that the basis, because now you know whatever the words are, they don't even matter because the energy that you're tapped into is what you're offering to them and to others. That is, hmm, that's all that matters.
Mhm.
That's all that matters. That's what the children are picking up on. That's how they have their conversations. So remember that feeling. Remember that feeling of enjoyment and fun and compassion and understanding, having that be the basis. And then you'll draw from them and from yourself that. But if you see them as not being able to do something, or you see them as being too sensitive or upset or lacking in any way, that's exactly what you're offering. And that's what they're picking up on.
That's how we're creating it.
Indeed.
Yeah. Yeah, I see. Hmm.
I think it's something that you have to practice. You have to remind yourself
Yes,
what you're creating, what you're doing. It's a constant reminder
it is.
that I have to look at it in a different light.
And as we began this conversation, reminding you that when your primary intention is connect with this inner energy, with that God energy, with that source energy, and make that the priority, then you'll have all of those loose ends tie themselves up in this conversation and in any others. It's the same process, but with different applications. It's the same process with different inspirations. It's the same process, but with different applications. It's always going to have its own expression continuing to develop through you, whether it's a conversation with another, whether it's in relationship with your own body, whether it's about your abundance, whether it's about anything. You recognize the energy and the resonance or the dissonance, the connection or the disconnection, the flow or the restriction, and you make that the basis for how you're going to talk to another, how you're going to speak to yourself, the actions that you're going to take.
Hmm.
You always have that fork in the road, the direction that's going to benefit you and everyone around you, and the one that is not. And you cover these paths up with all sorts of words and ideas and phrases and cultural habits and beliefs and so forth, to this point where you can be walking down the miserable road and say, well, I'm being sacrificial, and that is honorable, and I'm being honorable, which is my purpose, and things like that. Meanwhile, that feeling is gnawing within you. So that's what we mean when we talk about beliefs. You cover it up with all of those thoughts, with all of those approaches, because no one's going to be walking down that path willingly so much.
Hmm.
In other words, even the people who do some of the worst, what you would call the worst things in your world, many times, almost every time, have convinced themselves that they're doing good.
Yeah. Hmm.
Just a belief. But what's it covering up? What is the feeling? What is the energy?
Is that what you're saying, Joseph? That the belief itself is an energy that's being covered up or projected, or the source of the discomfort?
Yes,
It's the energy. A belief is an energy.
it is.
Hmm. Belief is an energy. Hmm. And through that belief is how we're creating that situation or experience. Yeah. Hmm. So in this process of just allowing the energy to come forward, that kind of stepping back and connecting, we have moved out of that energy of that belief,
Yes.
and we've moved into the energy of our divine energy, divine nature coming through in that moment.
Yes. And
Uh,
you recognize it by the feeling and let that be the starting point. And then as you follow the inspiration and the impulses and the new ideas that are coming from the flow of energy, you create new habits. Those become your standard, whether it's in relationship with another. In other words, you can practice yourself in all sorts of different directions with people within your life, and they will faithfully reflect back to you that which you've practiced. They really cannot help it.
they really cannot help it.
So if you think that there is tension, in other words, we have issues, is often said,
Oh yeah.
as if it is something that exists independently from you.
Hmm.
But it's just in this moment. Or we really get along. The two of us, we really just flow and jive and everything feels wonderful. You take it for granted. But that is the belief. And it can be changed in relationship to all things. Whether you have that recognition because of a very subtle feeling of guilt, or you recognize a very subtle feeling of frustration, very subtle, not full blown. You're not way before you're yelling at each other or way before you're in an uncomfortable situation. There is just that little push, that little pushback. And don't push back.
Don't
That
push back.
is what is meant by turning the other cheek in that context.
So the practice is to recognize that little subtle resistance.
Yes. And then dig in, and we want you to fight for it. No, we're just kidding.
I think that even in the decision sometimes to work through stuff, I'm still fighting with it. I'm still
Yes.
resisting it. Yeah. And I hear you saying that it's really just kind of like step out of the way,
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's really helpful.
So you have a belief, it's real, it's become manifest for you, it has been guiding your experience, your emotional experience, and so forth. And then you step back into that neutral place and you can recognize it and you can choose to engage with it, or you can feel the subtle feeling of that inner energy. And maybe it's not quite as compelling. Maybe it doesn't have as much definition, but you start to choose that lighter path. You start to choose something that feels just a little bit nicer.
Hmm.
And then what happens is all of that starts to fall away, all the tension, all the old beliefs, any of that, which you would call conditioning, anything like that, it just sort of falls by the wayside because you're not giving it your attention, you're not giving it emphasis. And so it just, and we don't even want to talk about it. In other words, we can give you all of the sort of details and how it works and how you experience it and how this whole process unfolds, but it is almost more helpful for you to just not even know. And what we mean by that is who cares? If you choose the new energy and everything else is going to resolve and solve itself and fix itself, if you would, what else do you need to know? Do you need to know how the car works to get from one point to the other?
Mm-mm. No, I hear you. Okay.
Joseph, this was awesome, but I have to go. I apologize. Please give my regards to Aaron. Thank you, guys.
Indeed,
Awesome.
enjoy it.
I will
Thought by
practice.
thought.
I will practice, practice, practice. It comes practice.
Bye,
They'll
Anson.
enjoy it too.
Marilyn, was good seeing you.
Good to see you too.
They will
Okay,
enjoy
bye-bye.
it too.
Thank you.
Bye. So I had another kind of question, not in the same vein, but something else. And thank you, because I know exactly what you're talking about, and we don't need to dig into it and label it or anything. I totally feel it, so thank you.
Okay.
But I had this experience of a dream in which my mother and her boyfriend, like, I'd been concerned for quite a while about my mother being happy where she is now in spirit. Um, and I always, I knew that I carried around some of her, like feelings of heartbreak at the end of her life. And because I'm good at that. No, I'm not so good anymore. Anyway, in this dream, she and her boyfriend were reunited, and it was like this happy ending, if you will, this happy, joyful ending. And I felt like that was a message from her in my dream.
Yes.
Can you confirm that?
We do.
Okay.
And beyond that, we want you to ask her for the confirmation.
Oh, yes.
And we want you to ask your own inner guidance, because hearing us say the words, we know what it means. We understand the confirmation. Aaron, when he has these confirmations, has the goosebumps and the throughout
Yeah.
the body, so the physical body knows as well. But of course, the energy is very strong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I felt it was a gift.
But as you ask for your own confirmation
Mm-hmm.
here,
Mm-hmm.
asking from the highest source, asking from her highest self to confirm.
Mm. Mm. That's really beautiful.
Then not only do you get the confirmation in this moment, but you continue to develop the relationship as well, because the happy ending, of course, isn't an ending, and it is not apart from you. You're not some detached observer peeking through the windowsill in that dream. You're part of that relationship as well.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. That's actually really good, because I did have a feeling that I was part of what was going on. Like, it was almost as though I was there with them. And it was just this kind of like joyful meeting. And yeah. So thank you for saying that.
But when the confirmation, when the communication, when the interaction occurs, how will you know? Are you going to look under every rock for a sign? You recognize it the same way you recognize any manifestation, which is that essence of joy that you're just describing here. Whether it's money in your bank account and it feels the same way you felt as you're visualizing, or it's communication with the non-physical aspects of those close to you and feeling the confirmation of that joy. That's the confirmation that we want you to reach for.
Yeah. Yeah, I can trust that. Yes. Yes. I can trust that.
So ask her, where can I find the joy? Ask her in herself, where's the joy?
Where's the joy,
and
Mom?
enjoy the process that is going to be shown to you from that interaction, because it's an interaction, it's a relationship. There's back and forth, there's that communication, there's that resonance. So feel free to ask, feel free to communicate, feel free to recognize the aliveness, the living nature of that living, breathing consciousness, that relationship. So when you ask those questions, it's not going into the abyss, it's not going to the ether. Your intention focuses that energy, and there is that relationship. So again, where's the joy? What's the essence? It's that joy. Where's the joy?
Yeah. I had this kind of sense of her telling me that there are many more celebrations, many more celebrations. That felt very joyful. That was like that's her. Like I know that's her because that's how she is. She's like, you gotta enjoy life. You gotta celebrate. You gotta, you know, and that there are many more celebrations. So that feels really good. That feels very abundant to me. That feels very loving, very uplifting. And that feels like her.
And you. And so it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a nice thing that we can share, as you said. Okay, I get it, I think. Yeah. All right, ongoing communication, ongoing interaction. I do want that. I want that. I want that communication. I want to be open. I want to enjoy that communication. Not only with her, but with just non-physical in general and of course, in the world. I
And
want that.
so it is. So let the dream be a revelation of a possibility. In other words, it's a greater feeling of joy, yes?
Yeah. It was a huge feeling of joy, like such a release.
So that's the process. The next steps come in, you feel the combustion of energy, you enjoy it, you look for it in more places, it gets stronger.
Wow. That's kind of so cool.
It is.
That's really cool. Okay. Thank you, Joseph. Yeah, it doesn't have to end because I felt that in that moment, I can feel that again. I feel that energy again. It doesn't just end. It's I can touch into it,
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's what it's there to show you. That's the way.
That's cool. Okay. I'm going that way. This has been so helpful today. Thank you so much.
Very much. You bring a life experience that allows us to articulate this process more clearly and more clearly and more clearly. We extend our appreciation to you for your ability, for your willingness, for your openness to have these conversations, to call it forward. Because after a conversation like this, we're way better at articulating it.
Oh, well, you're welcome.
Very much. We've enjoyed this conversation. Anything else here?
No,
We
no,
are
that was good.
complete.
Okay.
Ooh,
Wow.
hey there.
Boy, hi, Aaron.
Hi.
They got right into it. Really so helpful. Right into
I'm good. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that one in some detail. I think that's one of those sessions that's like beyond what has been articulated through me. So I think I'm gonna go back and have my mind blown. So
me
awesome.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, send it back to me too, because that was fabulous,
Yeah.
really. And Anson said goodbye and see you next
Oh,
week.
okay.
Yeah.
Yay.
All
Very
right. Well,
good.
have a nice weekend. Thank you, thank you, thank
I
you.
will. Happy Friday.
Yeah.
Happy weekend.
Happy weekend.
Talk soon.
Bye, Aaron.
Bye bye.